delay. And as you all know, I'm much more comfortable with the at other platforms than this one. And I do have webinars on different topics back to back for across the country for various forums, so that it has never been much of an issue. And sorry about the delay. So anyways, this is the second session with the rest of the class related to immunization in children. And you all know that immunization is a very important aspect, and day in, day out, what else are we hearing? COVID vaccination and immunization. Anyways, in this presentation right now, COVID vaccination is not the preview of this topic today. It is basically all related to understanding the immunization, what is vaccination, what are vaccines, what are the basics of the vaccinology, why, and you can even relate it to the COVID vaccine experience which you are gaining, and why, which vaccine, how, why, where, when, and all these things will make you understand when I talk about some of these issues which are going to be addressed in this class. And we will also try to understand what are the factors influencing immunization besides the basics of vaccinology, which will make you understand, and also related to immunization schedules, the EPI and UIP, you have all heard about it, as well as the individual vaccines. And I will also touch upon adverse events following immunization, which is a very important aspect. I'll not be talking much about cold chain. It is just for to recall, because all these each slide is important from your exam point of view, from your MCQs point of view, as well as your Vivas point of view. And last slide will be related to how we manage the adverse events, which we always should be equipped about. I will not be talking about missed immunization or immunization in special circumstances. Individually, when we are talking about the vaccines, we will be touching upon this, and not at all about the travelers vaccines, which is not going to be discussed today. So anyways, moving on to the next aspect, that is what is immunization. And each one of these is your Viva question, please remember, and they're all MCQs hidden as true or false or accept or whatever are there in these slides which are there, which have been prepared for you. So immunization, we all know, is the process, biological process of inducing immune response on giving a biologically active substance. And that is what is a vaccine or any of these products which can be active or passive immunization, which we are doing. So immunization is the process of inducing immune response, humoral or cell mediated, about which I'll be elaborating. And immunization is the means of providing specific protection against most of the common and damaging pathogens, and specific immunity can be acquired either by passive or active immunization, and both modes of immunization can occur by natural or artificial means. That's what you have heard, and this is today's topic is going to make you recapitulate what you have learned in microbiology, that is in the first few parts, and later on what you have learned during your community medicine posting, and the applied aspect will be covering in this pediatric tutorial. So what is vaccination? Vaccination is the simple process of giving the vaccine or the antigen, whereas immunization involves the whole immune response which it evokes. So vaccination is a method of giving antigen to stimulate the immune response through active immunization, and vaccine is a immunobiological substance designed to produce specific protection against a given disease. And vaccine is antigenic but not pathogenic. So it is not going to cause the disease, but it is going to evoke the immune response so that you can fight out with the disease. That's what it is. So when we talk about basics of vaccinology, there are certain terminologies which come to our mind and we recall from our days of microbiology. something which is innate immunity, that is, you are born with that immune system or immune functions which are already there in you, which is going to take care of any kind of exposure to any kind of antigen or uh, any insult which is going to be coming in the form of organism or chemicals. Then there is adaptive immunity, that is, you evoke a response, and in relation to that, your body is going to give some response by production of antibodies and protection against that particular disease. And we all know immunity can be active or it can be passive. And then there is a primary immune response, that is the first time exposure, or the second time, that is the secondary immune response. So you must have seen that many of these vaccines are given first and then they are repeated in the schedule so that we boost up the immune response. That is what is your secondary immune response. Then we also have a look what is the immune response of the vaccine, which is called the vaccine immunogenicity, and then vaccine efficacy, that if we had given a vaccine to a certain group of people, how many were protected against the disease. So it is the protection which has been there. See, immunogenicity of a vaccine may be somewhere around 80%, but efficacy will be, maybe it is around 60% or 70%. It is not protecting everybody. Then there is herd immunity or the herd effect, which we talk very much in terms of these airborne infections like your measles, mumps, and also related to COVID. We are talking about the development of the herd immunity, which will come up by giving vaccination or by the natural infection or the exposure to the this thing. Then there are certain adjuvants which are part of the vaccines, which are going to have a synergistic effect, which are going to help with the immunological response. Those are what are adjuvants, and you find adjuvants in your DPT vaccine as well as with the HPV vaccine. So there are some vaccines which have adjuvants. Then we talk about combination vaccines, which are there with for multiple antigens like your DPT. Even your flu vaccine, which was developed, is a combination vaccine, and so is your IPV with different serotypes. So it is not only measles, mumps, rubella is a combination vaccine, or DPT, that is different organisms, but within the same organism, different serotypes, if you are taking care of, it becomes a combination vaccine. Now we'll go back to the first part of the basics, that is what is innate and what is adaptive immunity. So the innate immunity is actually the first one, which is going to create on entering, it will evoke a response in the spleen or in the lymph nodes, and it will trigger the T cells and the B cells, which are found in the splenic germinal cells or the lymph node germinal cells, and there will be multiplication of these cells, which then go as adaptive immunity because they cause T cell response or a B cell response, B cell causing humoral antibodies and T cells the cell mediated immunity, and which will go into long-term memory cells, which get activated, So the innate immunity is antigen independent, and there is an immediate response, and it is not antigen specific, and it is exposure does not result in induction of memory. And whereas the specific immunity, its response is antigen dependent. There is lag time between exposure and maximal response. It is antigen specific, and exposure results in induction of memory cells. And this aids in non-specific immunity. Now, what is passive immunity? This is just to recall, and you must be knowing about this definition. It is just being repeated. That it is transfer of antibodies produced by one human or or animal, and it's a temporary protection and transplacental, most important source in the infancies. The sources of passive immunity are almost all blood or blood products, homologous pooled human antibody, homologous human hyperimmune globulin, and antitoxin like we see for tetanus toxoid as well as diphtheria. And for this immunoglobulins, we have immunoglobulins against the hepatitis B or the measles, and also against your rabies. Now, what is active immunity? Active immunity is antibody or sensitive lymphocyte produced by the body following exposure to antigens, which is the vaccine. And this is active immunity, and it is artificially generated through the administration of vaccine. Vaccination is active immunity, which is produced by vaccine. Immunity and immunological memory is similar to natural infection, but it does not cause the disease. So what is seroconversion? We all say that so and so has seroconverted and is protected. So change from an antibody negative state to an antibody positive state is what is seroconversion. But seroprotection is the state of protection due to presence of this humoral immunity or antibody detectable in the serum. So as I was talking about, the immune responses are humoral responses, which lead to immunoglobulins, development of IgG, IgM, and IgA in cases of polio on the surface uh, gastric or intestinal mucosa. Then there are geometric mean antibody titers or concentration. They can be measured by that. Seroprotection rates, seroconversion rates, and functional antibodies and antibody avidity. That is what is your immune response. I was talking about the innate response, which is the natural killer cells, dendritic cells, and innate cell. Actually, the graphic got missing. I do not know how from that previous slide. Now, the cellular response is B and T cell activation markers, and this is cytotoxic T cell lymphocyte response, which is measured through these different assays, but they are little difficult to measure. Then there are cytokine response, which are intracellular and extracellular production of interleukins, interferons, TNF, and all that. And then there are future methods to measure it with the protein microarrays and all this, and that is what the various immune responses are and how they are measured. Now, the immune system has got humoral immunity, that is, this type of immunity is due to the circulating antibodies. That's what we were talking about. And gamma globulins, also called immunoglobulins. It is a major defense against bacterial infections. And on stimulation, the B lymphocytes divide and its daughter cells are transformed into plasma cells, which later secrete the antibodies into the circulation. So basically what I wanted to tell you was that all this I will be explaining with certain graphics, and we'll be working on it. Now, the other way of establish host resistance is through the T lymphocytes, which is the cellular immunity. These cells synthesize and release pharmacologically active substances, lymphokines, which can kill cells carrying foreign antigens. The T lymphocytes also act against the invader by the stimulation of macrophages. This activity of the immune system is known as the cell-mediated immunity, and the peak of this activity occurs around the 10th day. So many people said that we took the vaccine, but we still got the COVID infection because their immune system had not yet got activated when the vaccine was opened up in the month of April. So many people got the infection even though they got vaccinated, and that is what had happened, which really spread around. So what is antigen? Antigen is a live or an inactivated substance, for example, protein, polysaccharide, capable of producing an immune response. And antibody is the protein molecules, that is the immunoglobulins produced by B lymphocytes to help eliminate an antigen. After having defined this, this is the graphics related to the immune responses, whether they are humoral response, that is the B cells, with the antigen. It combines and it forms, it uh, leads to secretion of the cytokines and antibodies secreting plasma cells, and which leads to the antigen elimination. The cell mediated response is through the T cells. They multiply with the helper T cells, and they get activated, and the cytokines are secreted, which lead to the production of the antibody secreting plasma cells, or through these cells, that is the T lymphocytes, which kill or alter the cells, and that is how they take care of the organism. So this is another one which is showing an antigen which may bind to the toll-like receptors and activates the T cells for the production of the memory T cells or production of antibody B cells into the as part of the B cells. An immune system plays an active role. There is proliferation of antigen reactive T and B cells result in the formation of memory cells. Unfortunately, these classes related to immunization were actually, we used to have two types of classes. One was we used to have a theory class in the lecture hall where we used to interact with you and show you and even ask you, so that it was never a one-way thing. It was always a two-way thing flowing, and it was not virtual, and we could interact with you. And we used to have tutorials which used to, where we used to revise this whole topic with practical aspects, and we used to make you visit the immunization clinic so that you are actually in tune with the practical aspects and the implications related to immunization. So unfortunately, now this is a mixed pattern of theory come tutorial. Unfortunately, there is nothing like tutorial now. It is supposed to be tutorial. It is just one-way communication. And I do not know how much you are listening, how much you are interacting. I also do not know. Anyways, I hope this will help you in with your exams when and basic understanding related to immunization. So there are different types of vaccines. There are some with antigenic protein and some with, and these are called the plasmid vaccines. So they also similarly enter these dendritic cells, and they yield the antigenic protein, which gives rise to the peptides, activate the cytotoxic T cells and the memory T cells relating to leading to cellular immunity, and similarly production of the memory B cells and the B cell part. So the immune response, when an antigen is introduced into human body, it stimulates production of antibodies, microorganisms and their toxins, and vaccines in evoke an immune response. And the primary response is when an antigen is introduced into the body for the first time, there is a latent period of 3 to 10 days before antibodies appear in the blood. And that is what I was trying to explain with the example earlier. Peak is reached quickly, then levels of antibodies falls gradually over next to few weeks or months. That is why you need to repeat the dose of the vaccine so as to stimulate the antibody production and have a better immune response. Like whenever this antibodies fall, this is what is called waning of the immunity or protection. So this is what is happens in the primary immune response. There is multiplication, and all this will lead to this can be measured as IgM antibodies and IgG antibodies for a long term, and they go into the memory cells. So, but the secondary or the booster response is response to booster dose of the same antigen. It differs from the primary response because it has a shorter latent period and more rapid production of antibodies, and antibodies are produced in abundance, and a high level is maintained for a longer period. And this slide is very important because there are a lot of MCQs types can be created out of this slide. Antibodies produced tend to have a greater capacity to bind to the antigens, and this is an accelerated response, and which is attributed to the immunological memory. So having a graph showing the primary response and the secondary response. That is what this is the total antibody response in the primary and the secondary, and the IgM response initially is high, IgG is low, but with the secondary or the booster dose, your IgG antibodies rapidly increase to a very high level, and IgM antibodies relatively are less with the secondary. Now I'm just shifting my gear to the cold chain, and you all must be knowing that all vaccines have to be maintained in a certain specific environment so that they can evoke a response and they are still potent to when they are given to the beneficiary. So the system of transporting, distributing, and storing vaccines from the manufacturers right up to the point of use under refrigeration using any convenient method is referred to as cold chain. If it is not maintained, vaccine efficacy will grossly suffer. The safe temperature zone is to be maintained. Short-term storage is for 1 to 2 months for 2 to 8 degrees, whereas long-term storage of -20 degrees for BCG, OPV, measles, and MMR. And the T series vaccine should not be frozen because they have got aluminium as an adjuvant, which will desiccate and can cause irritation and can cause sterile abscess, which occasionally is seen. So when we were talking about our COVID vaccines, people have been wanting that the Moderna or the Pfizer vaccines should be quickly brought down to this country. But the issue is of the storage, because those vaccines have to be kept under -80 degrees, and for giving it to the beneficiary, you have to create that kind of infrastructure. So one has to see to many aspects practically. No, this is your vaccine container, the deep freezer where the vaccines are kept. And here you will observe that the more heat sensitive vaccines are kept at the lower part and then followed by the less sensitive ones. And this is in reverse to what you will see in the refrigerator. And that refrigerator photograph, again, I do not know how it has got missing in this, but it is can be easily seen at the on the website and can be downloaded, or it may be there in some of your books also, especially the community medicine book. Now we talk about the factors which are influencing immunization. There are intrinsic host factors, age, sex, genetics, and comorbidities, which will what kind of immune response we get. Then there are perinatal host factors, that is the gestational age, birth weight, breastfeeding, maternal antibodies, maternal infections. Then there are extrinsic factors like infections, antibiotics, what is the microbiota like, what are the pre-existing immunity. Then there are certain behavioral factors also which influence the immunization, and these stress and these behavior factors decrease the response to the vaccines. Then there are nutritional factors, environmental factors, the geographic location, the season, and then there are vaccine factors itself, what kind of vaccine it is, what kind of product it is, what are the adjuvants and the doses to be given, and what kind of strain you are using. And then the administration factors, that is the vaccination schedule, site, route, size, and co-administration of the vaccines or drugs with it. They all influence the immunization. And this we used to discuss practical aspects during our tutorial, because we could then give good examples and talk about them. Now there are various types of vaccines. First of all, I've put the tissue culture vaccines, because otherwise you people forget in your exam what kind of vaccine is rabies. So you please remember and don't bungle up when your viva is going on. The live attenuated vaccines are the BCG, polio, and measles, mumps, rubella, varicella, and some of these are of less importance now. Killed vaccine we all know is the pertussis, the polio vaccines, the influenza vaccine, JE vaccines. Then the diphtheria and tetanus get come under the toxoids, and the cellular fraction vaccines are your H influenza, typhoid, meningococcal, pneumococcal, and also now your COVID vaccine is also part of the cellular fraction vaccines. And then there is recombinant vaccines, that is the hepatitis B vaccine, and even your COVID vaccine will also get classified under the some of the types of vaccines will get classified as recombinant vaccine of the COVID vaccine. You all have to know the current national immunization schedule, and this is just to recapitulate what you have learned from community medicine, but this is more practical aspect which we are using in the pediatric practice, that when these vaccines have to be given at birth at 6 weeks, and some of these vaccines like rota and pneumococcal and JE vaccines are actually given in certain districts and certain states depending on the morbidity pattern. The places where there is more respiratory or diarrhea morbidity and mortality, that's where these vaccines are being used. Now I'll talk about the individual vaccines, and amongst the individual vaccines, they get classified as the EPI vaccines or the non-EPI vaccines. The EPI vaccines are the BCG, diphtheria, tetanus, polio, measles, mumps, rubella, hepatitis B, typhoid, Hib, rota vaccine, pneumococcal. And the non-EPI vaccine are the hepatitis A, rabies, varicella, meningococcal, HPV, and influenza vaccines. So when we used to have physical classes along with your tutorials, I used to make you people make this chart related to various vaccines, and under these headings you used to fill up this chart so that you people could remember for your exam. So we used to talk about the contents, the constituents, the age, the schedule, the dose, the route, and instructions to be given, any adverse events, contraindications, what kind of response they are evoking, that is the seroconversion, the storage, or if any other thing which needed to be highlighted in particular for that vaccine. So I'll first talk about the BCG vaccine. You got to know the content. What is this vaccine about? How many in each dose carries how many million organism? What kind of preparation it is? When do we give it? What is the schedule? What any boosters are required? And mind you, the dose is 0.1 ml and not 0.05 ml for preterms or anything. There is only one single dose, and that is 0.1 ml. It has to be intradermal to be, and this is reconstituted in a normal saline, which has to be at the room temperature. Efficacy is 0 to 80%. I'm not discussing over here. And what are the contraindications? We know it is immunodeficiency. Adverse events are abscess and axillary adenitis. Then I come to the diphtheria vaccines, DPT vaccines. You got to know how much diphtheria toxin is there, pertussis, and along with this, and it's a schedule is 6, 10, 14 weeks with along with the boosters, the dose, the administration, and the contraindications. Mind you, these adverse events for DT are different, and for pertussis it is different. So you must listen carefully what question is being asked from you during your viva related to these vaccines. And I'm shifted the slide because I wanted to talk about H influenza B vaccine along with the DPT, because they come as penta vaccines as along with the hepatitis B vaccine, which are available. And once the hospital opens and the COVID and you people have to come for your classes, then you please go to the children OPD on the 5th floor, room number 505, where all these vaccines are kept, and you must have a look at them so that you are quite comfortable with the vaccines as well as their utility. So that is what we generally make you do, to visit the immunization clinic, which is an important aspect of your MBBS syllabus. So the schedule for H influenza B is similar, same as hepatitis B, with a good efficacy, with no contraindications and very little local reaction or fever. So I go back, then I talk about the oral polio vaccine, which is the same. Type 2 is not available in the bivalent vaccine. It is liquid. Schedule is birth 6, 10, 14, and then with the your boosters, 2 drops orally with 70 to 80% seroconversion, and not to be given in immunodeficiency or HIV infection. And vaccine-associated paralytic polio can be one of the adverse events. I'll just shift back. We will talk about typhoid vaccine later, because the other vaccine which is given along with your primary immunization of DPT and all is along with Hep B and all is Rota vaccine, and this is also given in a 2-dose schedule, at 6 weeks and 10 weeks, and maintain an interval of 4 weeks between the doses. So that is what is being done. And most important is that the first dose should be given before 15 weeks and second dose before 32 weeks, and that has to be maintained, otherwise there is the risk of intussusception. Now we move on to the measles vaccine, and which is given at 9 months, and Admonstron Zagrabstein is used with 1000 TCID units. It's again a lyophilized vaccine given to children more than 9 months and 9 to 12 months, and it is given as MR as per the government schedule, and booster can be given as MMR, and it is to be given subcutaneous deltoid with very good efficacy, hardly any contraindications or adverse events. I've shifted the slide to the measles, mumps, and rubella. We have the rubella vaccine, which is there with same 1000 TCID. Similar, this thing, I have not corrected it, 9 to 15 months, it can be given single dose for measles, along with measles and mumps, same and very good efficacy and no contraindications. And mumps is the other one, which is given along with MMR. The same story goes for it. Then we come to pneumococcal vaccine, which is another vaccine which is being used as a conjugate or a polysaccharide to be given to children less than 2 years. And again, it is given at 2 doses are given at least 4 to 8 weeks interval, and the polysaccharide has to be repeated more frequently. But here I'm talking about the pneumococcal conjugate vaccine. You can get a short note on any of these vaccines, especially the neuro vaccines like Rota vaccine, pneumococcal vaccine, influenza vaccine. They can be part of your this thing. Then I come back to your typhoid vaccine again, which is available as polysaccharide as well as conjugate. You all know polysaccharide vaccines are given to children above 2 years, and conjugate is given to children less than 2 years. The polysaccharide vaccine is to be given every 3 years, and conjugate, the schedule is actually to give 2 doses 4 weeks apart for a long-term protection, and they induce, it is to be given IM, and efficacy is 70% with hardly any adverse events. So I now shift where I think IPV, I do not know where. There was a slide on IPV also. So you go, please read up about injectable polio vaccine also, so as to complete the list. Anyways, I'm now shifting towards varicella vaccine after your MMR vaccine, which is the varicella vaccine, which is to be given to children more than 1 year and 1 to 12 years. We actually give 2 doses 1 month apart, and 0.5 ml. It is given subcutaneous like your MMR vaccine, very good efficacy and hardly any adverse events or contraindication. The other is your meningococcal vaccine, again like your typhoid and pneumococcal, is available as conjugate and polysaccharide. Earlier polysaccharide was available, but now conjugate vaccines are available. So please kindly read about them in little more detail, because it will be required. It may be asked in any of your exam. And plus, it is important to know if you need to take it yourself as a medical graduate for protection against meningococcal infection. Next is your rabies vaccine. It is a tissue culture vaccine. You have 3-dose schedule of pre-exposure, and post-exposure is your 5-dose schedule. It can be given IM, or it can also is given intradermal. You must have read about it in your community medicine related to this. Then the JE vaccine, which is being used in certain districts to protect the children against the JE infection, which does take a significant toll in the certain parts of the country. Then influenza vaccine is another important vaccine which is used both for children who are at risk of recurrent chest asthma or chronic lung disease, and especially and also for the adults. Now I should talk about HPV vaccine, which is again available. There are 2 types which are available, and so both the vaccines provide protection against the cervical cancer and the precancerous lesions, and also against the anogenital warts, to be stored at 2 to 8 degrees, 0.5 ml, and it should not be it should be avoided during before pregnancy. The contraindications to various vaccines are only if a person is very moderately or severely unwell, live vaccines in immunocompromised individuals, anaphylaxis to previous dose of vaccine or a vaccine component. You should know what is an anaphylaxis and how to take care of it. A word about adverse events following immunization, because one has to report these on the national as well as the state dashboard if one encounters any AEFI, and especially if it is a serious AEFI. Sorry. So these are the forms which have to be filled related to adverse events, and the serious AEFIs are the deaths, hospitalization if they occur in cluster, or there is a disability, and this signals and events associated with especially a newly introduced vaccine. AEFIs may have been caused by an immunization error, significant events, anything which is occurring within 30 days of vaccination has to be reported, or if there is any parental concern or community concern, that needs to be addressed. And if the local swelling and all is more than 3 days, one needs to address that. So there are different types of AEFIs which are observed related to BCG, Hib, hepatitis B, and the time period of their interval when it can take place, and in how frequently they are seen as per million doses amongst the population. So you all have to know how to manage an anaphylaxis in the emergency department. That is the ABC, that is you look after the airways and the breathing and the circulation, and you will be taught this, or maybe you have already been taught, but or maybe during internship you will be having classes related to advanced life support or the basic life support, where management of anaphylaxis is important. So one has to have adrenaline wherever you are, in whatever setting you are doing vaccination. There has to be adrenaline over there, and especially people are saying give it in resident welfare residential colonies through the resident welfare association. But most important is that one has to be prepared about taking care of anaphylaxis, which cannot maybe undertaken in those kind of settings. So therefore, most of the ideally the vaccination or immunization should be run from a clinic or a hospital setting, and even those drive-in ones, the vehicles, they've been talking about it for the COVID vaccination. These people need to be observed for at least 30 minutes after taking vaccination in whichever setting they are taking their vaccine. So depending on that, you will give adrenaline, and you may even have to repeat the dose, start with normal saline, initially give a bolus and start with the drip, And so this is what is how anaphylaxis has to be managed, and you got to know this algorithm. Thank you very much, and thank you very much for your kind listening and attention.